Rugby round 4 review brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby predictions and opinion. And tonight you have myself, unfortunately, talking because unfortunately Steve can't make it this evening. So it's got myself and Shane. Shane, how are you doing, sir?
Good, thanks, Paul. How are you?
Not so bad at all. Not so bad at all. Very busy with all of this rugby that's on. Not only do we have Super Rugby, we've got Six Nations. We had some Gallagher Premiership at the weekend, and also had some. I've gone blank. What's still on? Major League Rugby as well. So lots and lots of rugby going on. Good evening, Andre. Good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. So it all kicked off. Actually, spoiler alert, even though you probably already know the results. 7 home wins this weekend. The away team's just not travelling well this weekend, Shane.
Well, in South Africa and New Zealand, Paul, as we all know, home games and home wins are a very important part of getting those points and getting up the ladder, aren't they?
They are. But I think this is the first round of 7 every single winning home win. I was 6 out of 7 with my predictions. I didn't have faith in my Blues, and so unfortunately I missed out on that one. But yeah, close but no cigar this weekend. So it kicked off with the Hurricanes hosting the Highlanders. The Highlanders knocked on the 1 metre out from their line, which 1 metre out from the Canes line. And you think, oh, okay, the Canes have held out. But no, they put up a scrum, get pushed backwards. Artie Surveyor picks up and goes, but gets tackled by Aaron Smith and doesn't make any ground at all. Gets turned over, and the next ruck, Aaron Smith then manages to put the ball down as the ruck goes over the line. So, yeah, not a good start for the Canes. And and perhaps something that we're going to talk about at the end will be about their forwards. One of those forwards, though, did hit a lovely line. Mitchell off TG Perenara and showed some good composure for a rookie to make sure he didn't try and go all the way himself, and gave it to Laumape, who scored his first of 2 tries. Coles is back and looking very good, but hands in the ruck allowed the Highlanders to pull back 3 and take the lead. But then on half time, just when you're thinking that the Highlanders are going to go with the lead, they have a bit of a poor exit kick, which doesn't make touch, and then in the resulting run back or attack by the Canes, Barrett puts a crossfield kick. Laumape picks it up out in the wing and goes in for his second try. So that meant they led at the half time 14-8, and it all got a bit scrappy and messy in the second half. With the Hurricanes actually getting through, having in that first half, the Highlanders actually got through, had more of the play, and should have been leading at half time, if we're going to be honest. But Hurricanes in that second half, the Hurricanes started to have more of the play, but against the run of play, Tompkinson managed to intercept one of a ball and go over for the try. I say the Highlanders hadn't had much ball, but hey, they got the score and they got the lead. They then stretched that lead with a line-out maul. But an offside penalty allowed the Hurricanes to pull things back with it, and it was all Highlanders during that second sort of set stretch of the second half, but they didn't really get any points or anything from it. A line-out maul was stopped, but Lamb went over in the corner to even things up, and then on 80 minutes, Artie Surveyor was the man who caused the turnover that allowed them to go down the field and get a penalty and win the game on 80 minutes. So a really tight one there for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, a bit scrappy, Paul. Was Laumape? He's really developing pretty well. 5 tries in the last 2 games. Got a double and played well with his explosive speed, but it was a real gritty battle of 2 New Zealand forward packs, which was really good to see the Hurricanes forward step up. The Highlanders were really gritty as well. I think the weather and the conditions probably played their part in this game. So we didn't see the highest scoring game of all. And the Hurricanes, after the bell, managed to get a penalty and put it over, and there you go. And they start off Friday night with a win.
They do. It's kind of interesting that we didn't actually see Ari Surveyor for much of the game until, I mean, he started at 8, but it wasn't until they had substitutions and had taken the 7 off and he moved into 7 that he really started to have an impact on this game. Do you think that's an experiment we'll see that's failed we won't see again, or do you think they're going to persist with trying to get Ari Surveyor at 8?
Well, the commentary team had said that, and I heard Nisbo, and I think it was Nisbo on commentary that night, and they said once he moved into 7, he looked like he was more in a comfort zone. Don't experiment with players that shouldn't be at 8. They should be at 7. Note Australian rugby.
It is funny because myself and Stephen had a chat on last Wednesday night on the All Blacks edition, and we're suggesting that maybe Ari Surveyor was the person that would replace Kieran Reid at 8 for the All Blacks after the Rugby World Cup, but maybe not after that performance. Andre says Highlanders are his surprise team so far. Didn't expect them to look that good with these players, and they are a team that seems to be that looks good when they've got their All Blacks playing, isn't it? But the depth I'm not sure is there for when we lose the Smiths, for example.
Well, Smith is the key run to that side, really, and they do a lot of their attacking work. And depth is an issue, but let's not forget 2015. Where they took us all by surprise and won it, and looked very comfortable in that final in the end. I never discount the Highlanders on anything. I think that they're a gritty side. They fight for everything. Remembering New Zealand rugby depths of their Super Rugby side compared to a lot of other sides like Australian rugby sides are still a lot better quality. So keep faith in the Highlanders. They'll be up there in the conference. They'll be right.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of 2015 about this side, which will be interesting to see. We then popped over the Tasman for the Rebels versus the Brumbies, the rematch of round 1 when the Rebels went to visit the Brumbies. The Banks had already gone close with one break before there was a scrum, and that lovely floated ball off the back of that scrum to Spate, saw him go in the corner. It was one of those ones where they had to go upstairs because he got very, very close to that sideline, but just kept his heel in. The Rebels were allowed to come back into it with a penalty kick, but after that it was all Brumbies in that first half. Coleman's yellow card for offside on repeat infringements as Brumbies battered the line, it didn't help things. Fainga was now the first forward to score 4 tries in 4 games for the Brumbies, and that was obviously from a line-out maul. We then saw a penalty try after that for offside. From in at the side at a line-out maul. After that, when they already had one person in the bin, which kind of didn't help, and so suddenly it's 3:19 at half time with 2 players in the bin. Into the second half though, and the Rebels down 2 players managed to get Corabetti in the corner. Fantastic power by him, goes through three or more players from that after a missed out pass from Cooper. And you've got to remember that's when they still had 2 players in the bin, and suddenly they're back in this game, 8-19. Then off the back of a scrum, there was another miss out pass from Genia. So we had the scrum, second phase off that scrum. So the forwards are all still relatively locked in, and a big miss out pass from Genia puts Maddox in the corner. And scrums were to become a big part of this because the Brumbies stretched their lead at that point with a again off the second phase of a scrum, but this time Samu picked it off the back, surged forward, and they just found, and they found Valentine to go crashing over to make it 15-26. But then a Genia tap and go after a scrum penalty saw him dive under the sticks, and as you can see, scrums became a big part of this game. In the first half, the Brumbies were all on top there, but somehow the referee decided Genia, a lot of talk about Genia getting in the referee's head and managing to persuade him that actually the Rebels were on top in the second half. And then a Maddox went in the corner to seal this game, 29-26, with a long floated miss pass from Cooper. So yeah, a lot of this was off the back of that key duo of Genia and Cooper, with their long floating passes or with their missed passes and quick thinking. But did Genia manage to get into the referee's head, do you think, with that one?
I think he got into his players' heads after an outburst late in the first half. I think there was some choice words to be said there. Look, the Rebels were like the Beagle Boys trying to get Scrooge McDuck's loot. Their real discipline got them some really bad attention by the referee in the first half, and hence the cards came out. And nothing like a good driving maul to see a penalty try at the end of that first half from some really good Brumbies rugby that we've come to know and love in Australia. But it was the complete opposite in the second half. Genia and Cooper took control of the game, and they were magnificent. Will Genia was actually given a 9.5 out of 10 rating by rugby.com.au for his performance in that game. Now, I thought it was 0.5 higher than that. He really was outstanding. He led by example, and that is what we want to see. Now, the quick tap off the scrum, that is typical Genia, showing his class, showing his cheek, knowing the rules. And when the Rebels got onto their roll on, they really did deserve to win it in the end. And in the other side of things, the Brumbies' discipline started to fall off a little bit. And when Pocock left the field with about 15 to play with a calf problem, I think, the breakdowns weren't as effective either. And you know what? Well done, the Rebels. A lot reminds me of the old Queensland Reds from 2011 with this side.
And yeah, Alex says that the Genia and Cooper know each other very well, and they do know each other very well, as you say, from those Reds days. And it's not surprising that we're seeing a lot of similarities there with that team. And you've got to remember that team did also win the Super Rugby. So yeah, a couple of teams that have won it in the recent past, perhaps bringing back those days with the Reds and also the Highlanders.
Great memories.
Then we had the early game on Saturday, which was the Crusaders versus the Chiefs, and the Chiefs coming into this off the back of 3 losses, the Crusaders coming in off the back of 3 wins, and that was to continue. And the Chiefs didn't help themselves, knocking off by kicking the ball a lot in this game, and they lacked a lot of the ball because of that. Crossfield kick early on to Harris, and Reese intercepted, which didn't help them. Enor then was Enor got the first points off a Goodhue offload out wide, and that's becoming a feature of this Crusaders side, is some of those offloads by those wide players. Goodhue has been doing that last week as well, so yeah, that's clearly part of his repertoire now. Chiefs were getting in the stride of things, and then trying to play out their own half this time, but then they Dane McKenzie tried to pass over the head of Severu Reese, who isn't the tallest player, but on debut he managed to reach over his head, catch it, and intercept and go, and that led to a try. The Chiefs had a try disallowed for forward pass, which didn't help, and we just saw but after that we had a well-worked try by Anton Leonard-Brown. That was the one that was by Anton Leonard-Brown. This was disallowed, but what we saw with him that we didn't see with Dave McKenzie was a calmness to spot there was a player in the way, hold on to it, run forward, wait until the pass was on, and then pass it. And so Anton Leonard-Brown really showed that there. Poor discipline from the Crusaders during this game, and they gave up more penalties, but they still came away with a comfortable win. Allowed a couple of scrums, and Seo came off the back of that to bash through, using his sort of dummy offloads to keep some defenders thinking, and that saw him go over. Fortunately, that was as good as it got really in that first half, because we then saw the coming off the back of a scrum, they went wide to the Crusaders, came back to where the scrum was, and the 7 and 8 really were not connected in defence, and that poor defence for them has just left a gaping hole, and Crusaders went straight through. Unforced errors were really killed the Chiefs as they were trying to chase the game. Makileo had a great line off a ruck to go over, and then just before half time the Crusaders had a turnover, and with so many options of players all running in, the Chiefs defence had no hope, and it was 33-7, and the game was over by half time. Into the second half, and as Crusaders do, they got the first points again. Again, lots and lots of players going in all directions, lots of options for the ball, for the pass, and we saw Ala Alatoa going through a big gap. The Chiefs did come back with a try off the back of off the scrum out to Satoro, and he was in the corner. But hey, this was 50 minutes, and this was already a consolation try. The Crusaders wrapped it up with Havili also playing the offloading game to put Cody Taylor in for a try on his first game of the season. They then had a line out with a bunch of offloads that led to a try, and allowing out more that led to a try, before we had a couple of consolation tries for the Chiefs from Debrasini, and another one that you had some great hands to go over. So yeah, and this was just Crusaders dominating and being basically in cruise mode for most of this game.
Well, I'll put it this way, Paul. Former Wallaby Ben Darwin has a company called Gainline Analytics, and I'd like to see his statistics on the Chiefs for, and then improving their for, but also dramatically declining in their against, because it's something's going terribly wrong at the Chiefs. That was poor, other than the last 10 minutes where they started to turn it on a bit with McKenzie moving back to fullback where he should have been all along. Look,
yeah, I mean, having Debrasini there really did sort of seem to calm things down, didn't it?
Yeah. He's improved his game a notch since he's left the Rebels, and I got to say, the Crusaders just march on their merry way. Now, as an Aussie, I've seen just how damaging this side can be over the years. They maul, they scrum, they get their rucks right. They were a little bit ill-disciplined in this game. They conceded more penalties, as you mentioned, but even their defensive structure is next to spot on. So I gained nothing other than the fact that the Crusaders really look like not just championship contenders, but championship winners. And unless something dramatically goes wrong in Christchurch with injuries or, something like that.
Well, yeah, but we were listing. We did a show down at the Zone Sports Bar here for this one, and before the game we were listing the players that were missing for the Crusaders. Owen Franks, Matt Todd, Quentin Strange, who is the leading line-out player at the moment, Mitchell Drummond, Whitelock and Reed, as and George Bridge as well. So yeah, just half a team of good players there being rested. So yes, plenty of sorry. Just what I was doing there was just for those of you, I was grabbing my pre-game notes, which I had written up for this one.
Massive depth.
Yep, absolutely.
And that is scary. If they are putting 57 points on the Chiefs with several players missing, including the New Zealand captain, imagine what they can do with those 6 or 7 players back. I'm scared now. I'm getting under the covers.
And I think you talked about game line analytics and Darwin's thinking there, and he talks a lot about the connectivity of teams, and one of the things that we also noted was that the Crusaders only changed 5 players in their off-season, whereas the Chiefs had 10 new players in the squad. And when you look at them, when you're losing players like Charlie Nartai and Liam Messam, then you're losing your leadership as well out of that team. So if you look at the Crusaders this team, Samu went, but let's be honest, he wasn't even a first choice starter for the Crusaders. So they didn't lose even those players that did leave. White Crockett retired, but the rest were not leaders or part of the leaders in the squad. So yeah, big difference in the turnover during the off season between those two sides. A team that did have a lot of turnover though was the Suns, or the Sunwolves, sorry, but they managed to start the game against the Blues well with a very silly penalty by the Blues, getting in front of the kicker, allowing them to give up 3 points, then getting caught offside, and suddenly they're 6 points down. The Blues then got the bit of upper hand, forced a couple of penalties or had a choice of which penalty to take from the Sunwolves to narrow the gap to 3-6, and then the man of the man who got all the points anyway was Rico Iwani in this one. Nanai, great break, went very close, but quick ball out wide to Rico allowed him to basically walk in the corner. The Sunwolves came back into it though with a nice interchange in the 5 metre channel. Actually, a New Zealand-esque try, which is unsurprising considering how many New Zealand expats they've got in this side whilst the Japanese international team are away training. I think, yeah, say great interchange down the 5 metre channel to go over to take the lead back at 8-13. But it wasn't to be. The Blues went into half time 15-3 up off the back of the scrum, and Akira Iwani attracted all the defenders. Poor defensive reads by the Sunwolves, to be honest, which meant that he could pass it out wide to Rico Iwani to go and score. After the half, in the second half, it was pretty similar. Rico Iwani out wide on his own. The ball goes wide after a scrum, and he walks for his third try. The Sunwolves then lost Mazzi Rua for a deliberate knockdown from being offside as the Blues were hammering away at the line. And again, the ball makes its way out wide to Rico with some very quick hands from Nanai, and he walks in for his 4th try. The Sunwolves do manage to pull a try back to get it back to 25-20 by bashing over when they had a player missing for the yellow, but they then lost another player to a yellow card, Vela, for knocking knocking the ball down as the Blues attacked the line. A penalty was enough from that was enough to see the game home. So 28-20, and the one-man team Rico Iwani Blues went and got the win.
Well, it was the Tonight Show with Iwani. He was outstanding, 4 tries. And what I was really impressed with, and I know it's a game against Sunwolves without disrespecting their quality, was the Blues finishes off the bench finished the game off this time. And that is something that the Blues have lacked for a very long time. And, you know, you celebrate your wins as much as you commiserate your losses. The Sunwolves didn't do too much wrong in this game. They tried their guts out. But it is really positive for all the Blues fans to celebrate a victory, no matter who they played. And Wani was outstanding. I thought Harry Plummer stood up. You know, it was. I'm not convinced with Terry Black, but I thought Plummer played pretty well for the 65, 70 minutes he was on. And then the Blues bench did their job, and their defence was outstanding. The Sunwolves played this quick game and this very fast game, and the Blues stood up to them, and their fitness levels matched the Sunwolves. So, can I say, Paul, there's a lot of positives for the Blues to take out of this one, and I hope the rest of the season is a really good season as best they can. So,
and Alex makes a good point here that Sonny Bill Williams' leadership was key in this one. I mean, when I was joking about this being a Rico Iwani side because, to be honest, he kept his width, which is what a winger should do, and then he was given the ball and empty space in front of him to score for those 4 tries. I think maybe a hand was put on him for one of those. So this was not a Rico Iwani pulling miracles. This was him at the end of moves where the Blues had made space out wide for him to get those scores.
But it was genuinely exciting to see him score those tries too, I felt.
Yep, yeah. It was kind of there was. I remember listening to the TAB just before this game saying that actually, you know, they had a special on for both brothers to score tries. Now, unfortunately, Akira Iwani didn't get a try, but Rico got 4, but I don't think that counts as both brothers scoring. So I think they were doing a special on that one. That's an important win for the Blues because that's their first win of the season. And with the Chiefs having not won yet, you could actually see that that we could see the Blues actually not finishing last in their conference for the first time in, well, as long as I can remember anyway. Probably going back to Pat Lam.
Well done to Leon McDonald, his first win as a Super Rugby coach.
Absolutely. And then we went on to a classic derby game in Australia, isn't it? Between New South Wales and Queensland. These games aren't generally known for their high quality of rugby. They're quite often scraps or fight nights, as Shane has called them in the past. The Reds didn't get off to the best starts because Hegarty missed a kick from out in front. It was long, but he could kick long. His kick was long enough, but it wasn't straight. We then had Beale going close for a try, but he didn't quite make it. And they came back for the penalty for Foley to knock over one. And at the restart, the Reds came in at the side of a ruck, and quickly it was 6-0 to the Waratahs. We then saw a yellow for Smith for stopping a quickly taken penalty. And from soon after that, we saw the Waratahs do actually a pretty clever thing, to be fair to them. They don't have the strongest pack, and so line-out mauls are not going to be their strength. So they faked the line-out maul and then crashed over underneath the posts to make it a 13-0. Karevi showed his class with a clever pick and go from the back of a ruck when there was still a man down to pull one back, but Foley kept on kicking and made it 16-7 with the Tars getting caught offline. Karevi was also instrumental in the Reds' second try. He was strong in contact when the ball had not. It looked like the move had broken down, but he kept his feet, got sucked in the players, offloaded to Fial Sutia, and he zoomed it in for the try to make it only 16-12 at half time. When you think it was 13-0, that was actually a pretty good result for the Reds. Unfortunately for them, it all went a bit south after that, with the Tars getting the first score of the second half. A really poor clearing kick to Kirtley Beale, and then he attracted the defenders and put Rona down the touchline. And he did very well to stay in field and to power past a couple of players. Naivolu gave the Reds some hope. It was really messy ball, and then the ball was poked through, and he led the chase and put it down. But Newsom, at pace, hit a gap, and he just went straight through it for a try to seal things up for the Waratahs. The Reds had chances, but they really were not clinical enough in this game, and there was some pretty poor kicking at sticks as well, wasn't there, Shane?
Oh, I could name 1,000 things that they didn't quite do right, and conceding those 2 tries with really soft defence after half time was 2 of those 1,000 things. And you can't afford to do that, and you can't afford to do that next week in Tokyo. The Sunwolves will put you to rest very easily. Were they gutsy and gritty? Yeah. I thought the Waratahs, though, they stepped up as they always do for this derby, fight night. And it was really refreshing to see Beale being taken out of the 12 jumper and put in the 15. It was, a lot of us have been mentioning that. I know you have at times. I have at times. Falau probably didn't do as much at 14. The Waratahs, obviously their forwards stepped up, and they got high quality with Pallotta now back on the short-term loan for 6 weeks or so with the Tars. When you can call up a Wallabies hooker with about 60 or 70 caps off your bench, you know that you've got a pretty handy backup there. So, all in all, it wasn't the greatest Waratahs performance in the world, but they will be buoyed by it, particularly against Queensland. They've got the win against the Sunwolves narrowly. They got the win against the Reds. Their season has well and truly kick-started. The Reds have a lot of work to do.
Now, what's going on with the old stadiums in Sydney? Because they're played at the SCG. Cricket grounds are never a great place for watching rugby because you're so far away, and we've seen that also with the Cake Tin down in Wellington, that you're quite a long way away from the pitch as well. But the SCG is a proper cricket pitch, whereas Wellington is just a one-day. It's not a test. It's not a full-size pitch. Also, the turf was cutting up pretty badly. Not a great venue.
Well, it's a big hotbed political issue in New South Wales with the elections coming up in the state, with the stadium. So I can guarantee I don't think both sides were happy to play on the iconic SCG. They might have, in the 80s and 70s, and when Australia had many of their great wins against the All Blacks. But the turf, I think there was more gardening going on, and you could have almost had a gardening show going on in the middle of this game with how much work had to be done. So, yeah, look, the Waratahs say they are confident when they come back and play the Crusaders in a few weeks' time that the pitch will be in better condition. So we'll just have to wait and see. Same issue was with Melbourne a couple of years ago, where, again, you could have had that gardening show on as well.
Yeah, but that was actually on a rectangle pitch as well. But yeah, that was just too sandy under the base. So yeah, let's hope they get that sorted, because yeah, it's not the best look.
I would have volunteered a few shirts, by the way, if it was that sandy as well. We had a beach party.
But well, to be fair, it was good to see the retro shirts from both sides. That was
absolutely
that was the best part of the actual show, about the actual game. Lions Jaguares, an absolute score fest here. So basically, the Lions won this one 47-39 against the Jaguares. The Yankees having a really good game, passing 1,000 points, I think it was, or something like that, as well. The Alex as the great Aussie gardening show. So they had their locks running off Yankees very well, which got the first try. They did give up a penalty, but they also racked up a couple more tries to take a 19-3 lead. We had Quagga Smith out wide, running nicely to get a score. They did give up a try to the Jaguares from a great cross-field kick, and they did pull back a line out more, but at half time. But it was 26-13 at that point. So with the Lions in the lead, the Lions then really took the took the game by the scruff of its neck with 3 tries in just over 7 minutes during the second half. They had the scrummers going backwards, but they eventually managed to bash over and retain the ball and bash over from that one. They had a kick that was partially charged down, which meant that all the Lions players were suddenly onside, rather than being offside, so they could catch it and break and score. And then finally, they were bashing away at the line and used a cross-field kick themselves to score the third try to take a 47-13 lead. Jaguares came back with a couple of line-out maul tries, but at the second one, you could really see the players were not interested in defending it and just let it just flop over. And then 2 tries, one on 80 minutes and 82 minutes, make this score look something vaguely like respectable. But basically, this game was over well before the hour mark. And after a couple of disappointing performances by the Lions, they're back to they're back firing again.
Well, firstly, I've got to say well done. The bounce back from a couple of losses in a row. Nice to be at home in the Johannesburg environment, and they ripped in and had the game won pretty early. And credit to the Jaguares, they didn't give up. They scored 4 late tries, and if they hadn't gone for a drop kick and kicked the ball properly, they would have probably got that bonus point as well for falling within 7 points. So I'll say this much. I'm still not convinced with the Lions yet. I just think that, there's question marks for me. I don't think they're quite the side of the last 3 years. I think the Jaguares, again, their terrible run in South Africa continues. They've got the Stormers next week, so it's no easier going to Cape Town for as many travelling sides would tell you. So look, it was good to see some attacking rugby nonetheless, and some really good tries anyway. So I think that's what we can take out of that one.
The Lions are definitely blowing hot and cold this season. They're not the side, as you say, of a couple of years ago. And to finish things off, we had the Bulls versus the Sharks. Now the Bulls in a rich vein of form at the moment, and a lot of that's through Pollard, and he was punishing the Sharks' ill discipline with the boot. The first half ended up being 19-0, but as I say, that was mainly from his boot. We had two penalties, and then off the back of a scrum, they just put the ball through the hands of the Sharks' defence. Really was pretty woeful. I mean, how you can there was no... the players were running straight and hard, but they weren't doing anything. There wasn't anything special going on. So it is so that put it out to 13-0, and then 2 more penalties at the scrum time where the Bulls dominated. That meant it was 19-0 at half time. You're thinking that the Sharks really need to score first in the second half if they are going to if they were going to challenge in this one, and they did. The line out more disintegrated They broke free and very nearly, and I say that, and they scored. Pollard though was kept things going. He took it to the line, gave it to a lock into space, and then after he was brought down, the ball was spun wide, and they went over and scored. And suddenly 24-7, and yeah, it was all really over. A high tackle allowed the Bulls to get another penalty over, and that was really quite desperate because the Bulls were getting their offloading game going, which when they do, they can be pretty dangerous. The Sharks did try and fight back. There was a lovely inside ball as a scrum half sort of ran sideways to draw the defenders, and we had a drop goal. Yay! as well, which is which is nice to see. Then there was a turnover ball out wide. Creel sucks in the wide player, gives it to Speckman, and Speckman just zooms through and puts it down. We've heard some comments during the week that the Sharks are a bit upset over Robert Dupria heading to Sales Sharks next year. Yeah, perhaps things off the field aren't as harmonious as you'd want them to be, and that could be causing some problems on the pitch. Because again, the Sharks are another side that again that look better on paper than they do actually on the pitch. Your thoughts from this one, Shane?
Well, I wrongfully went on Cornflake's preview show and said that this would be the game of the round, given its traditional history. Sorry, Steve. But I've got to really say here that Captain America would be very proud of the Bulls with that nice jumper they're wearing, because they've been strong and resilient. And they played well, and they are punishing the discipline. And Roger Ramjet would be pretty happy with the speed of some of the Bulls' jets on the wings and the flanks there. They're playing some really good rugby. They are surprising a lot of people, but it's a good surprise to watch. The Sharks were poor. There should have been a lot more than... because they got a good side, and I quite enjoy watching them play. But this one at Pretoria, big crowd at Pretoria, the Bulls started off as favourites, and they took the Sharks on a Praetorian mauling.
Well, yeah, being inland and away from the sea, the Sharks didn't like it. The Bulls, yep, you've got to say, are looking the pick of the South African teams at the moment, and it's going to be interesting to see how far they can go. Thomas says apparently they've won whenever they've worn that jersey and lost when they didn't. So they're going to win all their derbies then, and they're going to lose all their other games because they were only wearing these Marvel jerseys for the South African derbies. I did, as a side note, I thought that either the Australian or the New Zealand conference should have DC comic superhero jerseys as a so one conference having Marvel, one conference having DC. But there you go. Maybe I was overthinking too nerdy about my comics. But thank you very much for joining me, Shane. We'll be back next week as usual. Hopefully Steve will be able to join us as well. I'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. with the Hash Rugby Chat with Ashwin and Stephen, and then back on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. with the All Blacks edition. I think it'll probably just be Ashwin and I for that one. And then Thursday, we will have the preview show as well. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe. For those of you on the recording, it'll be a bit up there. Down there will be a button for my Patreon page. And then over there will be 2 videos that the artificial intelligence here at YouTube say you'll absolutely adore. Thank you, guys.